Chapter 11. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Date a live translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Nowadays, society was much more open-minded and advocated free love, so romance in high school was already a common phenomenon. But this was based on the premise that a romantic relationship still needed to be built in a safe situation. Wang Ling was sure he would never cross the line. The problem was that he had never said he wanted to go on a date with Lotus Sunday. So what the hell was this, chasing him all the way to his front door and showing up uninvited? Disaster level, 2 stars. It was as if he had already seen what would happen if he turned down her invitation. First of all, the news would spread like wildfire in number 60 high school. When the time came, he would drown in spit with everyone spitting at him, and he would become the object of universal condemnation. He hated being noticed, but this situation would get him noticed not just by the whole of number 60 high school, but also by neighboring schools. This was a thorny problem. He looked at Mother Wang next to him. Mother Wang didn't think it was bad that a girl had taken a fancy to Wang Ling. Since he was young, he had made very few friends. The fact that a girl liked him meant that her son had a particular charm. The most important thing was that this person was the young miss of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. She had actually shown up of her own accord, which made Mother Wang indescribably proud. Wang Ling had so much to say, but couldn't refuse when his mother waved a hand at him. She had considered the situation and had finally made a decision. Go out and stay safe. If you dare refuse, you will never see your precious crispy noodle snacks ever again. Wang Ling. When women were in league with one another, they were always so dictatorial. Looking at the big bottle of youth. Retaining elixir in Mother Wang's hand, he felt that he had made a grave miscalculation. How could he have let Lotus Sun seize the opportunity first? In fact, regardless of whether he agreed to go on the date or not, he would attract the attention of the whole school plus neighboring schools anyway. The difference was that if he refused her invitation, he would meet an end worse than if he didn't refuse. He would become the target of bullying, and receive a lot of attention. Whatever he chose, he would be noticed. So whether he accepted the invitation or not was no longer the issue. The real battle now was to ensure that the date happened as low-key as possible. When Wang Ling got into the car, Lotus Sun felt like she was dreaming. Since the start of school, she had tried every method possible to approach Wang Ling, but this otherworldly boy had always shown a lack of interest in her. Now he was actually sitting in her car, which made her think it had really been worth it to call on him at his house. When Wang Ling got into the car, he felt like he was dreaming. If it wasn't a dream, then he must have been shot in the head to accept this invitation. A World Limited Edition Maserati sports car with the words, Huaguo Water Curtain Group emblazoned on the outside, and Lotus Sun sitting next to him. The first impression he got was that Huaguo Water Curtain Group was declaring to the world that it had taken in a sun.in.law. Forget it. He was doing all this for his crispy noodle snacks. This was what he thought. In fact, now that he thought back on it, given Huaguo Water Curtain Group's powerful influence in Huaxiao Nation, it wasn't difficult at all for Lotus Sun to find out where he lived. As Wang Ling watched the Wang family's small villa recede into the distance out of the corner of his eye, he wondered whether he should use the Great Star relocation spell to move the villa somewhere else on the map when he returned home later. Classmate Wang Ling, I didn't think you would actually accept my invitation. Lotus Sun smiled brilliantly, truly delighted. The dimples in her cheeks made her look very sweet. Wang Ling flattened his lips silently. Did he really have the power to refuse? To his surprise, Lotus Sun actually wasn't wearing makeup. But even when she was relying on her bare face alone, she still stood heads and shoulders above most girls their age. She truly was the standard for beauty. While he would admit that Lotus Sun was indeed very beautiful, one-sidedly coming to his house looking to go on a date felt like she was forcing herself on him, which really made him feel uncomfortable. Then where should we go? Classmate Wang Ling, is there a place you would especially like to visit? Wang Ling shook his head. Since this was the case, Loda's son directly made the decision. Master Lu, take us to the Shao family compound. Yes, Mississippi. The driver responded very politely. The Shao family compound was actually the name of a park opened by the Shao clan which contained thousands of years' worth of cultivation history. The land had originally been the Shao family's former residence, and had belonged to the Shao family for 1,000 years. However, in order to cater to a modern era, it was only a few years ago that the Shao family had used spells to move their old mansion out to make way for the construction of a new park on the land. It was worth mentioning that the Heavenly Flame Museum, well known throughout Huaxiao Nation, was also in the Shao family compound. More than 1,000 years ago, the Shao family had collected almost all of the heavenly flames in the world. Nowadays, this park had already become a sacred dating ground for couples. At midnight every night, there would be a fireworks party on the lake in the middle of the park. On a high platform, members of the Shao clan would merge 2 or more heavenly flames together to create a fire lotus, which they would throw into the air for it to blossom. Following Loda's son's instructions, the driver stopped the car in a small corner of the park, then got out to open the door for Wang Ling first, then for Loda's son. Lastly, he handed her a black card. This was the Huaguo Water Curtain Group's shareholder card. Whoever held it would receive exceptional VIP treatment. Wang Ling hadn't expected that Huaguo Water Curtain Group would have a share in a newly built park like the Shao family compound, which was just scary. With such a card, there was no place in the world that Loda's son couldn't visit. But compared with the aristocratic treatment the shareholder card entitled them to, Wang Ling was more concerned about whether the card would get him crispy noodle snacks from the snack kiosk. That's right. He was truly a person without any ambition. The Shao family compound was very large. The size of the land that the Shao clan had owned for 1,000 years had continued to expand during the 3 great eras of the cultivation world. Construction had been first completed during the Great Battle Qi era, which was when the Shao clan had played a leading role in the world. As the wheel of time continued to turn, cracks appeared in the chaos zone, draining the world of Battle Qi and leading to the early arrival of the Spirit Energy era, which was when the Shao clan declined. The current era which Wang Ling lived in was also Huaxiao Nation's 3rd phase in the Spirit Energy era, the Spirit Energy Information era, also known as the Scientific Cultivation era. The Shao clan, which had experienced all the changes of these 3 ages, was undoubtedly the grand old man of the eras. Even if the Shao clan had declined at the beginning of the Spirit Energy era, thanks to their cultivation genius, the clan was able to gradually transform themselves and to move forward and persist in the Spirit Information era. The Shao clan was still in the top 10 of the current powers in Huaxiao Nation. Though it was no longer a ruling power as before, it was still a well-established heavyweight. The only pity was that the heavenly flames which the Shao clan had collected from all over the world had lost their formidable power, on par with a nuclear explosion, due to the disappearance of Battle Qi. Apart from being fused together to be released as fireworks at the stroke of midnight, the heavenly flames no longer seemed to have any damn use. And so, relying on this marvelous performance of the heavenly flames, the Shao clan transformed from an ancient and noble cultivation family into a modern entertainment enterprise. 0. Data Live is a Japanese light novel science fiction and comedy series about a male protagonist who has to seal the destructive power of mysterious female spirits by making them fall in love with him and kiss him. Chapter 12. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Shao Family Compound Sightseeing Spots Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Wang Ling roughly calculated that the size of the Shao family compound was about 1,000 times the size of the Wang family's small villa. That was probably equivalent to around 1 billion packets of crispy noodle snacks spread over the ground. After construction of the park had been completed several years ago, he had always wanted to come and take a look at the place, but the expensive ticket had always kept him away. In contrast, he preferred to spend the same amount of money on crispy noodle snacks. While this unexpected date really hadn't been his idea, he thought it was fine to go out and relax occasionally. There were a few sightseeing spots in the Shao family compound, most of which had come about in the Great Battle Qi era. At that time, the Shao family had sacrificed a lot to transfer these old buildings into the Shao family compound, and today, these buildings were world-renowned sightseeing spots. The park guide which the Shao family compound had arranged for Lotus Sun and Wang Ling led them through a green passage set up exclusively for distinguished holders of the shareholder card. This was a relief to Wang Ling, who wasn't used to being so exposed in public. The only awkward thing was that both of them were silent as they walked, which made Lotus Sun feel a little helpless. The female guide leading them had been professionally trained by the Shao clan, and knew the layout of the park inside out. When they reached an intersection, the girl stopped and smiled at Wang Ling and Lotus Sun as she said, "Esteemed Mr. Wang and Miss Sun, this intersection leads in different directions to 3 scenic spots. Cosmic Cave, Treasure Cliff and the Stone of Inner Demons. Which one would the both of you like to visit first?" Wang Ling knew himself very well, and kept silent, quietly waiting for Lotus Sun to make a decision. And it seemed that Lotus Sun had finally completely accepted the fact that Wang Ling was a person of few words. She knew there was still a long way for her to go in influencing this piece of wood, but at least she had been able to drag him to the park today. Wasn't this the first crucial step on the path to revolution? There were 3 sightseeing spots. Cosmic Cave, Treasure Cliff and the Stone of Inner Demons. Lotus Sun had heard of all 3 of them, but she hadn't visited any, and didn't know what they were about. Before coming to the Shao family compound, Lotus Sun had done some research online, but had only looked at internet reviews and comments. Cosmic Cave was a tremendous hit, and was popular with guys. It wasn't easy to invite classmate Wang Ling out this time, so I have to try my best. In the end, it was about catering to Wang Ling, so Lotus Sun quickly made the decision. Then let's go to Cosmic Cave first. Very well, Miss Lotus Sunday. The female guide nodded. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun then got on a bus arranged for them at the intersection, and they traveled straight through the green passage to the entrance of the scenic spot. When the bus stopped by the side of a stone tablet inscribed with the words, Cosmic Cave, Lotus Sun asked doubtfully, "Why isn't there anyone here?" The female guide smiled. Initially, Cosmic Cave was closed today for maintenance. But Miss Sun holds a shareholder card, so special exceptions can be made. I see. Lotus Sun nodded. Following the guide, they walked for not more than 50 meters to reach the mouth of Cosmic Cave. Wang Ling stared left and right at the mouth of the cave as a cool wind whistled past him from time to time. The spirit energy here was so thin that it was almost negligible, and it was now a very ordinary cave formation. During the Great Battle Qi era, the stone walls of the cave had been eroded unevenly by the wind. Apart from its age, he couldn't see anything special about it. A common cave like this could actually become a national place of interest. Either the Huaxiao National Tourism Bureau was blind, or there had to be some inside story to it. The female guide smiled slightly. Let me explain the legend of Cosmic Cave to Miss Sun and Mr. Wang. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun both nodded, all ears. In the first 2 eras of the cultivation world, which we also know as the Great Battle Qi era and the second phase of the Spirit Energy era, the world was still very chaotic, with the human, demon and monster races all mixed together as one. It wasn't until the Spirit Energy Information era that the human race opened the gate between worlds and drove out the demons and the monsters. Before that, many cultivators had been wounded in the fighting, and they hid in Cosmic Cave. The female guide explained very seriously, in the Great Battle Qi era, there was a panacea called Cosmic Grass which could be found in Cosmic Cave. This panacea was wonderful for healing wounds, but it was also a sexual stimulant. Unaware of this, quite a number of female cultivators ate the cosmic grass, leading to the accumulation of blood from intercourse in the cave. Therefore, Cosmic Cave is also called Blood Cave, or Matchmaking Cave, since it brought together countless pairs of cultivators through various kinds of coincidences. In an instant, Lotus Sun's face turned red. So this was the main reason why Cosmic Cave had gotten so many positive reviews. This was too damn ridiculous. The guide had been specially groomed by the Shao clan to be of service to dignitaries. The fact that she was able to explain such a legend so solemnly was undoubtedly because she had done so hundreds of times. Even Wang Ling was stunned. He had thought it would be a pretty serious story, but who would have thought the tone would change so quickly? L.C. Of course, Cosmic Cave wasn't the only oddity in the Shao family compound. Afterwards, Wang Ling and Lotus Sun visited Treasure Cliff, the Stone of Inner Demons, and the very famous ancient auction house. These were all classic relics of cultivation that had been preserved for thousands of years, along with the shameful history of past generations of cultivators. Legend had it that people who jumped down from Treasure Cliff would without fail obtain ancient hidden treasures. But according to modern scientific research, the old cultivators who claimed that they had obtained these treasures had actually been suffering severe schizophrenia. The Stone of Inner Demons was where ancient cultivators took an oath on their inner demons. Once they swore the oath, they could never ever violate it, no matter what happened. But in the spirit energy information era, the existence of inner demons was completely refuted as an extremely unreliable cultivation superstition. During the Great Battle Chi era and Spirit Energy era, almost all the powerful cultivators in history had world-shaking experiences at the auction house. If they didn't splurge hundreds of billions of yuan there, they would be too embarrassed to say that they were patriarchs of that era. Nevertheless, according to current historical research, auction numbers had actually been exaggerated, and were nowhere as excessive as stated in legend. Something else worth mentioning was that the widely spread belief in ancient texts that one could be promoted to the foundation establishment stage by consuming a foundation establishment elixir was utter nonsense. This was like a Laupa Bing with no Laupa. Pork meatballs with no pork, or Fuchi Fipian with no Fuchi. They had gone through the entire Shao family compound. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun both had mixed feelings as they finally understood something about these damn scenic spots in the compound. What they had seen today wasn't purely just scenery. It was actually the whole of Huaxiao Nation's shame on the thousand-year-old path of cultivation. Chapter 13. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 Slain by Angry Buddha Fire Lotus, Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. The date was actually progressing far more smoothly than Wang Ling had imagined. Generally speaking, he was fairly satisfied with it. All that was left for him to do was to wait for the fireworks display, and then he could go home. He could then be considered to have accomplished this mission with flying colors. Lotus Sun's thoughts were the complete opposite to Wang Ling's. This date was even more insipid than she had expected. God! It hadn't been easy for her to go on a date with classmate Wang Ling. She wasn't going to give up now. The maiden blinked her beautiful eyes at Wang Ling, and in her heart thought pensively. After the fireworks, should we do something else? Like find an isolated, dark spot, 2 people face to face. Have a chat or something. At midnight, a lot of couples gathered at the central fountain of the Shao family compound for the fireworks display. Cuddling, hugging, wrapped around each other, sitting together on giant flying swords to show off their affection. They took up all kinds of positions to watch the fireworks. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun picked a relatively secluded place to sit down, and waited obediently for the fireworks to start. Once again, the situation turned awkward. Human beings were strange creatures. They were that close, but it was so hard to take that last step. Lotus Sun felt very awkward. It had not been easy planning this date, but at this moment she felt like an idiot, and she swallowed the words that she had wanted to say earlier. Wang Ling also had the same feeling as Lotus Sunday. His typical way of handling such a situation was to erase the other party's memory, and with this, eliminate their affection for him, so that he could continue living under the radar. The young Miss of Huaguo Water Curtain Group, a Fortune 500 enterprise, was just too striking for Wang Ling, who was used to a low key existence. Staring at the night sky, he was thinking that he needed to find an opportunity to cast the spell, when his right eyelid twitched fiercely. Wang Ling's heart skipped a beat. A disaster warning. Why would there be a disaster warning at this time? Whatever the case, because of his twitching eyelid, Wang Ling was instantly on guard. At that very moment, the fireworks display officially started. Standing on a high platform, Shao clansmen fused two clusters of brightly dot-colored, natural fire together, slowly transforming them into a fire lotus which flew up into the air. The fire lotus rose slowly like a sky lantern, and the petals of the lotus gradually unfolded in 7 colors. Ping! Gorgeous rays of light condensed together into a ball, as if pulling in starlight. Then it exploded in the air, and shades of beautiful purples and brilliant reds instantly painted the night sky. Almost everyone was indulging in the view. All of a sudden, Wang Ling saw in his peripheral vision 2 men in black approaching them rapidly. His instinct told him that they were coming for Lotus Sunday. Lotus Sun did not sense the 2 men coming up swiftly behind them at all. By the time she sensed a sharp coldness against her back, it was already too late. One of the men in black stretched out a hand to restrain her by the shoulder, while the other quickly pushed a cold gun muzzle against Wang Ling's back. "Who are you? What do you want?" Lotus Sun was a little startled, but overall she was a lot calmer than Wang Ling had expected. He leisurely raised one eyebrow. After all, Lotus Sun was the future successor nurtured by Huaguo Water Curtain Group. In a critical situation, she didn't lose her composure. One of the men in black growled, "We don't want to hurt Miss Lotus Sun and her boyfriend. But I hope Miss Lotus Sun will not resist, and will come with us quietly, otherwise I can't guarantee that this gun won't go off." Cold sweat dripped down Lotus Sun's forehead. She understood very clearly that the gun was loaded with enhanced spirit energy bullets, which could easily pierce the bodies of cultivators at the foundation establishment stage. Lotus Sun had received professional training and guidance from the group, and knew how to respond in such an emergency situation. She gritted her teeth. "He's just my classmate, not my boyfriend. Whatever you want, you can go through me. It's fine if I go with you, right? Please let classmate Wang go." Through the strength in their hands, Lotus Sun could tell that these 2 men were masters at the Golden Core stage, and were very likely top-class assassins. There was almost no chance of being able to escape from them. "Are you from Shadow Stream?" Almost at first glance, Lotus Sun had recognized the badge on the men's black clothes. Shadow Stream was a notorious assassin organization in Huaxiao Nation which received abduction and assassination requests all year round. They were well known in the industry for their professional integrity, and wouldn't reveal their clients' names even at the risk of their lives. Those who could afford to hire Shadow Stream to deal with them, at the very least, wouldn't be any less powerful than Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Huaguo Water Curtain Group had made enemies in the country and abroad. Who was it who wanted to harm her? But now wasn't the right time to think about this. Lotus Sun felt that the best plan right now was to decrease the number of hostages first before thinking of a way to inform someone on the outside. Meanwhile, Wang Ling was reading Lotus Sun's mind. Indeed, this was a normal response to an emergency, but the 2 cunning men in black appeared well prepared. One man took out a black pill from his pants pocket. "This is a fast-working sleeping pill that will cause you to fall asleep quickly after swallowing it. If your classmate eats this, we will let him go." This was to prevent Wang Ling from alerting people of the situation immediately. With so many people around, to be frank, Wang Ling didn't want to lift a hand against the men. The least eye-catching solution would be to swallow their black pill and fake sleep, then like what Lotus Sun had considered, let Huaguo Water Curtain Group know what had happened. Not a bad idea. I can seize this opportunity to end this boring game of playing house, Wang Ling thought. But just as he stretched out his hand to take the pill, he clearly heard what Lotus Sun was thinking in her heart at that moment. "Good, as long as classmate Wang is safe. As long as he can escape. At this moment, Wang Ling was stunned, his eyes wide open. The air turned deathly still. In the middle of a chaotic fireworks display, he lowered his head. His five senses were magnified boundlessly, and he could clearly hear Lotus Sun's frightened breaths. Even if she had been trained by the group, in the end, she was still just a delicate girl. Wang Ling's face darkened with anger, and he didn't utter a single word. Then, as the two men in black watched, Wang Ling pinched the pill and turned it into dust. Motherf ******. The men's faces contorted with rage. Was he flagrantly provoking them? This King 16-year-old high school student. Did he think he was a nascent soul or soul formation cultivator? Wang Ling got to his feet as he gave them a grim look. Just as they were about to pull the trigger, Wang Ling moved at the same time. Like electric snakes, his hands moved so swiftly that none of them could follow his movements, and he instantly seized the gun. The quality wasn't bad, thought Wang Ling, his expression indifferent as if he was playing around with a kid's toy. Relying on this trash to pierce his godly body was really too na.ve. The two Shadow Stream assassins were too slow to react. A ringing crack filled their ears. Stunned, their pupils constricted sharply. They sweated profusely at the scene in front of their eyes. Wang Ling had actually directly smashed the gun to pieces in his hand. Picked up by the light wind, the pieces were reduced to powder which drifted off in the air. What the hell? The two men in black stared wide-eyed. That gun had been made out of King 9th Heaven black iron. Lotus Sun was also dumbstruck, not understanding what on earth was happening. Classmate Wang Ling was only at the foundation establishment stage. How could he be so powerful? Your Excellency, who are you? The faces of the two Shadow Stream assassins betrayed their terror. They tried to escape, but an immense spiritual pressure held them immobile and completely unable to move. Leisurely brushing dust off his pants, Wang Ling raised his head and looked quietly at them. It was an ordinary expression, yet the two assassins shuddered uncontrollably. Who the hell are you? The aura which emanated from this 16-year-old high school student was 10 million times more powerful than that of any person whom they had ever assassinated in their lives. It was as if they were looking at an archdemon 10,000 feet tall. The sense of death suddenly gripped their throats. Without saying a word, Wang Ling grabbed their heads with each hand. After all, even if they died, they wouldn't reveal who their client was. What do you want? Nothing, I'm just sending you to heaven, Wang Ling responded in their minds. He lifted them in each hand as if he was lifting two chickens. Imitating the posture of the Shao clansmen on the high platform, in the blink of an eye, Wang Ling reduced them to elemental particles, then slowly rolled them into a tiny ball. With a burst of energy, he turned the ball into light, and sent it up into the beautiful night sky. Pang! A moment later, this angry Buddha fire lotus exploded in the sky alongside the magnificent fireworks. Beautiful sparks which dazzled the eye scattered in all directions, then gradually drifted downward, turning into star dust that finally vanished in the air. Wang Ling quietly watched the fireworks fade, and clapped his hands free of dust. It looked like the true, full use of the legendary lost skill of the Shao clan. The angry Buddha fire lotus wasn't as difficult to pull off as he had imagined. When he had tossed the ball of light into the air, Wang Ling had extracted the assassin's memories in passing. Later that night, he created an image of the information and sent it anonymously to Huaguo Water Curtain Group. And then, Wang Ling used up his entire weekend removing all effects of the incident that were related to him. Chapter 14. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Unreliable Lies and Slander Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. For Wang Ling, replacing memories was a more reliable method of removing the effects of an incident. Technically speaking, compared with erasing memories, it was a better method for hiding his nature. Erasing memories would leave gaps in the mind, while replacing memories wouldn't leave a person feeling that they had forgotten something, and also had no impact on the body and mind. Unfortunately, Wang Ling couldn't choose which specific memory he wanted replaced. Afterward, even Lotus Sun couldn't accurately describe the ins and outs of the matter. She had already completely forgotten that he had been the one to rescue her, not to mention that spectacular, angry Buddha fire lotus. Instead, her mind and the memory replacement spell together had created a story of someone exceptionally powerful and righteous rescuing her. However, she herself couldn't really say anything about the hero who had saved her and Wang Ling. And so, at the start of the second week of school, Wang Ling heard all kinds of gossip and rumors flying around the class in the morning. Little Peanut. I heard that classmate Wang Ling and classmate Lotus Sun bumped into two scoundrels when they were on a date. Super Chin. I heard that classmate Wang Ling and classmate Lotus Sun hooked up, bumped into two scoundrels, and in the end were finally rescued by an exceptionally powerful and righteous person. Master of Dopey. I heard that when classmate Wang Ling and classmate Lotus Sun were on their date, they observed a cannon together with an exceptionally powerful person. Dopey. I heard that when classmate Wang Ling and classmate Lotus Sun were on their date, two scoundrels came for them, and were sent flying into the sky by an exceptionally powerful person using a cannon. Feather Lin. I heard that when classmate Wang Ling and classmate Lotus Sun were on their date, they encountered two scoundrels, who were sent flying by classmate Wang Ling's super close guy friend, an exceptionally powerful master. Wang Ling, you guys, enough. And just like that, this exceptionally powerful person became an unsolved mystery to this batch of students. Speaking of gossip, one person had to be mentioned, theory of history teacher, Wang Zukang. For years on end, he had consistently been given the title of most popular teacher at number 60 high school. The students all thought very highly of this old antiques teaching style. Teacher Wang Zukang was nicknamed Old Antique because he knew a lot of gossip about the history of cultivation, which was massively different to the serious content recorded in textbooks. The students found things that they didn't know novel, and they were also curious about gossip. Compared with the monotony of historical textbook knowledge, the students in Old Antiques class were more keen to listen to historical gossip that no one else knew. So as time went by, Old Antique also obtained another nickname, Immortal Teacher of Gossip. For students, this gossip about cultivation history was the real point for assessment. Also, what Old Antique liked to do most in his class was gossip idly from time to boost the atmosphere in class. Thus in his class, the atmosphere was always so lively that no one ever felt sleepy. Even if there were one or two students who couldn't help nodding off, they would eventually be woken up by the laughter around them. The only unfortunate thing was that there was only one history of theory class each week. As a result, even students in the ordinary and remedial classes deeply cherished the theory of history class. When it came to Old Antiques class in particular, even before the first bell rang, all the students would already be in their seats, waiting quietly for a heavy-set fatty to stomp into the classroom. Previously, we started looking at reruns and the evolution of ancient TV shows in Huaxiu Nation, so let's continue with that. Students who haven't had breakfast can sneak their bread out when I'm not watching. But if I see it, your bread is mine, since I also haven't had breakfast yet. Hearing that Old Antique hadn't even had breakfast for the sake of coming to class, the students were deeply moved, and hurriedly offered him snacks from the stash in their desks. Are you trying to make me break the rules? This is a matter of integrity. How can a teacher eat when he's teaching? Old Antique said this seriously, but his hand still stretched out to accept a few packs of Lei Xiao from the students in the front row. He yelled, just this once, it would be disrespectful for me to decline. This was a typical case of one's acts belying one's words. Chewing on Lei Xiao. While gossiping in class, just the thought of it was scandalous. About the last class, does anyone have any questions? Old Antique leaned on the dais with a latio in one hand, holding it as if he was about to smoke a cigarette. He started to chew on it. Someone raised a hand. Teacher, the last class ended in too much of a rush. Some of us are still not clear about the key points you highlighted. Alright, I see. Then let's do a quick review. Everyone turn to page 10 of your book. This has to do with the reruns of Princess Pearl and Journey to the West. Everyone take note that these are the key points for this unit. Page 11, this has to do with the evolution of romance in the media, from never-ending portrayals of abortions to the ban on kissing scenes. Page 12, this has to do with the evolution of fantasy TV shows, from immortal swords to Shamate. Page 13, this has to do with harem TV shows, on imperial intrigue among concubines and infertility in the family. Page 14, this has to do with the way trends in military TV shows have changed, from the spirit of the Idali canon that I end the series. Drawing swords. To tearing enemies apart with bare hands on the battlefield. The above are the important points to know in this unit chapter. Everyone be sure to take notes properly. By the time he said this, Old Antique had already polished off a bag of latio. He took out a tissue which he had already prepared to wipe the oil from his fingers, and then continued, now let's begin with the story of Princess Pearl. Before Old Antique's marvelous lecture officially began, the students below the dais had already immediately started to praise and applaud him. Brilliant! Almighty Brother Khan! Long live Old Antique! Old Antique coughed lightly, and immediately there wasn't a sound to be heard in Grade 1, Class 3, except for his voice. I'm sure some of you have watched the classic TV version of Princess Pearl before, but as a fan of the original work, I prefer to study the story itself. Our school library has the original work, so students who are interested can read and enjoy the charm of the original for themselves. As everyone knows, toward the end of the Battle Chi era, cracks in the Chaos Zone drained the world of all its Battle Chi, leading cultivators to begin developing spirit energy as a second source of energy. But research showed that unless the cracks in the Chaos Zone were fixed, the world's spirit energy would sooner or later also drain away. It was at this time that an important princess showed up. Old Antique's eyes flashed as he said this. Let's first talk about this princess' background. Low-born, and even disabled, she was completely unable to establish herself in the Battle Chi era. But because of her tenacious and unyielding will, and her insistence on upholding the core values of cultivation from beginning to end, this princess was finally able to rise to the top of the world. At that time, the only way to seal the cracks was to find the 10 chaos pearls that had been left behind in the world. Finally, this princess managed to collect the 10 pearls and seal the cracks. Consequently, her story was made into a TV show, giving rise to Princess Pearl. Alright, that's it about Princess Pearl. As Old Antique finished, thunderous applause broke out beneath the dais for this outstanding and encouraging theory of history class lecture. This princess had actually collected the 10 chaos pearls scattered all over the continent through her own efforts. What a top female cultivator! The students' moods had been lifted by the lecture, and everyone was profuse in their praise. Chapter 15. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Old Antique's time for gossip translator. Henyi Translations editor. Henyi Translations, reruns and the evolution of ancient television shows in Huaxiao Nation was not an easy topic to cover. Take the TV show Princess Pearl. For example, at first glance, it was an inspirational cultivation show about the triumph of the underdog. But it involved a lot of era-specific culture, as well as dates that needed to be properly memorized, and the students would definitely be tested on these in the next monthly history exam. Although they didn't have many classes for history, it was a compulsory course. If they failed the history class more than twice, they would have difficulty even obtaining their graduation certificate. For this reason, even elite students like Lotus Sun and Super Chen were working very hard outside class hours. Wang Ling, however, was different. Born with a photographic memory, he knew almost everything about Huaxiao Nation's 5,000-year-old history. In spite of that, he was still very willing to pay attention in old antiques class, since listening to the occasional gossip could be good for the mind and body. The contrived and melodramatic plots of ancient TV shows were so terrible that they defied all reason. In old antique's own words, even if he finished using all the vulgar words to be found in the dictionary, they still wouldn't be enough to convey his despair. When he was talking about something that frustrated him, old antique turned into a complete chatterbox, as unstoppable as endless, torrential waters. Of course, it can't be denied that among these ancient TV shows, there are still some fairly outstanding works, such as the Mega Military Show, Yadali Canon, and the Shao Family Compound, which describes how a family clan develops and changes with the times. When old antique said this, a number of people below the dais gave knowing smiles. They knew that old antique's time for gossip was about to begin. That I heard that recently, 2 students in this class were ambushed by organization assassins when they visited the park. Speaking about the Shao family compound, there was no one in these last 2 days who didn't know that Wang Ling and Lotus Sun had encountered Shadow Stream assassins when they had visited the park. The fact that Lotus Sun, the young miss of Huaguo Water Curtain Group, had almost been kidnapped by Shadow Stream was naturally an issue of extreme concern for the higher-ups at number 60 high school. Almost the instant after Lotus Sun had encountered this assassination attempt, Headmaster Chen had called for an emergency meeting. Patrols on school grounds and in the corridors were increased, and teachers spontaneously teamed up in groups of 2 to 3 to prevent assassins dispatched by Shadow Stream from making another attempt on Lotus Sunday. Outside the school, Huaguo Water Curtain Group had also specially employed round-the-clock bodyguards, who removed any suspicious people that might be lurking outside the school gate. Shadow Stream's first mission had failed, but since the assassins had already received orders from the top, their modus operandi was to try every means of achieving their aim. To safeguard their students, the teachers of number 60 high school had run themselves ragged these last 2 days. As a master of gossip who had been at the forefront of teaching for years, old antique's ability to dig up gossip was inconceivable, and was something Master of Dopey could only hope to match. This Shadow Stream organization is very mysterious, and the assassins they send out are known internationally for their incredibly high levels of professionalism. Huaxiao Nation has never been able to properly curb their movements. Old Antique smiled slightly. The time for gossip was about to start. But as far as I know, the person pulling the strings behind the scenes is in fact in our country. Our school's legendary graduate Zhuo previously put forward a proposal to suppress Shadow Stream's strength at the year-end General Assembly of the General Administration of 100 schools. After it was approved, the General Administration sent out a call, and gathered more than 100 powerful Golden Core cultivators. Everyone was entranced. Super Chen couldn't help asking, in the end, what happened? Of course, they failed. Old Antique sighed, and shook his head with some regret. Everyone at that time had the same objective, to catch bandits, catch their ringleader first. After Operation Decapitation was given the go-ahead, more than 100 cultivators on all types of flying swords swiftly advanced from all directions, completely surrounding the apartment that the leader of Shadow Stream was in. It was a real shame that in the end, that person was still able to escape. It was truly not because the cultivators weren't valiant enough, but that the enemy was too cunning. The students were in uproar. They had never thought that the General Administration of 100 schools would actually plan such a tremendous and heroic undertaking. Old Antique was worthy of his name. He was a history teacher with a profound understanding of literature. After a simple explanation of the ins and outs of Operation Decapitation, he concentrated on the key points of the story. Along with a few simple allusions and superb storytelling skills, he painted a perfect picture of the operation. Like watching a well-produced film, the audience felt as if they were part of the scene. Sometimes Old Antique would picture bloody scenes that made some of the female students scream with fear again and again. At the end of the story, Old Antique let out another long sigh. Though Operation Decapitation failed in the end, it hadn't been a completely meaningless operation. Huaxiao Nation's Anti-Terrorism Division was at least finally able to determine the gender of Shadow Stream's leader. Super Chen teased, the gender of Shadow Stream's leader. Don't tell me it's a big brother with a chest full of fur. Feather Lin immediately retorted, it's definitely a repressed, short-tempered gangster. Show. Master of Dopey pushed up his glasses. It's possible that the great assassin behind the scenes is a dog-lover. In the end, it was Old Antique who personally revealed the answer. At that time, a group of cultivators raided the apartment only to discover that the leader had fled. It was very likely that the person had escaped in disguise among the cultivators who had taken part in Operation Decapitation, since Shadow Stream's leader is very good at transfiguration. Then how did they figure out the real gender of Shadow Stream's leader? Ednel.co. The main thing was that at the apartment which Shadow Stream's leader had been staying in, they discovered a recently opened pack of makeup. On the bed there was also a pair of bikini bottoms as well as a 36D. Cough cough. Male students, you can picture it for yourselves. We're supposed to be serious in class, so unrelated, 2-bit topics are not allowed. Checking the time, Old Antique tidied up his things on the dais, shamelessly putting the extra ratio into his pocket. Alright, we'll stop here for today. There's no homework for today, everyone go back and look over the chapter for the next lesson on Journey to the West. Finally, remember to be careful when you're outside. If you encounter any bad guys, you can give me a call, I can shoot them dead with a piece of chalk. As he ended the class, Old Antique waved and left to the sound of the students' warm cheers. The gender of Shadow Stream's leader had initially always been a topic of controversy outside. But after hearing Old Antique's gossip, it spread like wildfire throughout No. 60 High School that very day. No. 60 High School's UC tabloid department took the lead and posted a tweet on the school's public media platform. Shock. The boss behind the overseas assassin organization Shadow Stream is a lady with 36D boobs. In a few short hours, headlines such as Almighty Gossip and so on had gone viral on leading network platforms. After that, completely unexpected trouble showed up. That afternoon, No. 60 High School's guard room received a letter of challenge from Shadow Stream. Chapter 16. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There is a rip-roaring wind today. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. In the headmaster's office, Headmaster Chen clasped his hands together and rested his head on them as he stared at the letter of challenge on his desk. Has the situation been clearly investigated? Yes, Headmaster Chen. Shadow Stream's seal is very unique. After it was appraised by the Cultivation Police Department, they confirmed that it was Shadow Stream who sent this letter of challenge. Director Shi frowned. To be honest, she also had never imagined that Shadow Stream would grandly throw down the gauntlet against a high school, and threaten to complete the plan of assassinating student Lotus Sun inside the school as revenge for the matter in the Xiao family compound that day. It appears that the situation has become more troublesome. Headmaster Chen lit a cigarette and took a short puff. If Shadow Stream sends enough strong experts, it will be very difficult for us to curb their movements with our current faculty's strength. Student Lotus Sun is in great danger. So, what do the higher-ups mean to do now? They want us to first let student Lotus Sun take leave from school for her protection, and then apply to the General Administration of 100 schools to comprehensively upgrade the school's security measures in the short term. Director Shi, do you know how long it is to the next 100 schools council? It's about a month away. There are altogether 12 districts and 30.6 regular senior high schools in Songhai City. Currently, we are the third of the three main regular high schools in Peiyuan District. Director Shi. It was already a completely normal state of affairs for number 60 high school to be at the bottom of everything. Headmaster Chen sighed. If we accept what the higher-ups are suggesting, it's the same as saying that our school leaders are incapable. And if those two geezers at No. 58 high school and number 59 high school want to stir up trouble, they'll use this matter to kick up a big fuss, and we'll be further and further away from becoming a key city senior high school. So, what do you mean, Lord Headmaster? Our overall faculty may not be strong, but we still have one powerful comrade. Headmaster Chen thought for a while, then stubbed out the cigarette. I don't care what kind of measures Huagua Water Curtain Group and the Cultivation Police will take to protect student Lotus Sun when she is outside the school. But we have to take full responsibility for security measures inside the school, and we must make sure she is perfectly safe. Then, what should we do now? Reject the higher-up suggestion that she should take leave from school, and have student Lotus Sun brought to the independent classroom. It'll be enough to have that person stay to protect her. Tell the higher-ups that if student Lotus Sun loses even a single strand of hair, they can have my head. Headmaster Chen said with a wintry smile, Shadow Stream is nothing more than a bunch of second-rate, back-alley hoodlums. If they dare come, we'll K them over. Director Shi broke out in a cold sweat. Of course, she knew which teacher Headmaster Chen was talking about. But she thought it was too much like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut if they really sent that person to protect Lotus Sun personally. Not long after Shadow Stream threw down that assassination gauntlet, number 60 high school immediately took steps to fully protect student Lotus Sun, and directly moved her desk to the teacher's office. Lotus Sun was naturally very reluctant to do so, because then she wouldn't be able to see Wang Ling anymore. But Lotus Sun was unable to withstand the pressure from the school and Huagua Water Curtain Group, and finally she had to concede. After that very unpleasant date in the Xiao family compound, Wang Ling had thought that replacing Lotus Sun's memories would effectively curtail her feelings for him. On the contrary, they had in fact increased. From the results of Huagua Water Curtain Group's investigation, if the premeditated assassination attempt in the Xiao family compound had gone according to Shadow Stream's plan, Lotus Sun should have been absolutely unable to escape, even if she had wings. It was unfortunate for them that this exceptionally powerful person variable had appeared. Lotus Sun felt that she had been really lucky, and took it for granted that it was Wang Ling who had been her lucky charm. This pretty maiden who made up her own scenarios really gave Wang Ling a headache. The time that was written in Shadow Stream's letter of challenge, Friday of the second week of school, had arrived. Today, Shadow Stream would send first-class killers to directly assassinate Lotus Sun in the school. All the students were confined for their protection. Even when they went to the bathroom, they were accompanied by a teacher. Wang Ling created a clone to take his place in the classroom, and he teleported quickly to the building on the rooftop of number 60 high school to bask lazily in the sun. Idle, lazy, quiet and mediocre. This was the high school life that Wang Ling wanted to live. He gazed out at the school grounds. From this angle, he could see the old stone carvings at the main entrance. A breeze was also blowing gently through the leaves of the palm trees. What was different from the usual was that today, there clearly was a strange aura in the air. Wang Ling couldn't help sighing in his heart. High school life just wasn't as peaceful as he had imagined, given the petty shit that was happening almost every few days. However, Wang Ling felt that he didn't have to personally deal with the assassination letter of challenge from Shadow Stream. The reason was that he had realized that number 60 high school wasn't as simple as it seemed. While it was clearly just an ordinary foundation establishment high school, there was talent hiding among the teachers. This was Wang Ling's latest discovery since entering the school. Additionally, Wang Ling also realized that the expert who was the closest to him in terms of ability was the theory of history teacher, Old Antique. But what was with this situation? Why had a gang of Shadow Stream assassins suddenly gathered under his feet? Didn't they notice that he was also here? Seriously, what a blind bunch. A group of assassins in black suddenly gathered on the rooftop of number 60 high school. The distinctive red ribbons around their sleeves proved that they were Shadow Stream's first class experts. Team leader, there is a roaring wind today. Team leader, I think the boss is being excessive. It's only a female student, is it necessary for us to make a move? Today's target is the young miss of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. According to our intelligence, it's very likely that a top expert has been assigned to personally protect her. Otherwise, Shadow Stream's mission at the Xiao family compound several days ago wouldn't have failed, said the assassin leading the team. He had a red ribbon woven through with several gold threads, and indeed was the chief of this assassination operation. Exactly how powerful is this expert? We haven't fully investigated this, the chief assassin said a little ashamedly. The two black ribbon assassins who were sent out that day had a 100% mission success rate. If they had completed this mission, they could have been promoted to red ribbon. However, we couldn't even find their bodies. It's very likely that they were destroyed along with the golden cores inside them. What the F***? There had been nothing left of them. Several of the red ribbon killers broke out in a cold sweat. So, don't underestimate this fight. And remember, Lotus Sun is our only target. Once we find her, eliminate her immediately, then leave. Don't complicate matters, or leave behind unnecessary trouble. Whoosh! All the black-clothed assassins instantly dispersed when the chief assassin waved his hand. The chief of this operation was a top killer ranked number 13 in the list of the top 20 killers in the world. He had already carried out all kinds of formidable missions for Shadow Stream, and had reached this point after facing extreme danger and stepping on countless bones and souls of the dead. He had never thought that his last assignment before his promotion would be such a simple one. As long as I can successfully complete this assignment, I will be able to join Shadow Stream's gold ribbon management. Su Ying stood at one corner of the rooftop, looking out over the small and somewhat old-school ground, and made a hee-hee sound. It was just an ordinary high school that didn't even have a spirit-gathering array. Even if Huaguo Water Curtain Group had recently sent out a security team, were the teachers and school guards here strong enough to defeat the first-class assassination team sent by Shadow Stream? Su Ying smiled mockingly, then solemnly tied on his mask. This should be the last time he carried out a mission. Even if this last assignment didn't seem the least bit challenging, as a Virgo, Su Ying decided to execute it as beautifully as usual. There is a roaring wind today. Suddenly, a long, drawn outside sounded above Su Ying's head. Stunned, Su Ying's eyes immediately widened. Turning around, he suddenly discovered a male student with a crew cut and wearing the number 60 high school uniform sitting leisurely on top of the rooftop building, basking in the sun. Before coming to the rooftop, Su Ying had checked the area, and there definitely hadn't been anyone here. So the question was, where had this guy come from? Chapter 17. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was just AF *** King, ordinary high school student. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Then again, this wasn't the main issue. The real issue was, how long had this person actually been here, and how much had he heard? He was an expert at the late Golden Core stage, but he couldn't even sense the aura of a Foundation establishment high school student next to him. Su Ying felt this didn't make sense. How long have you been here? He couldn't help the few drops of cold sweat that rolled down behind his black mask. Wang Ling jumped down from the top of the rooftop building, dusted off his pants, and stared carefully at Su Ying. From that sentence, there is a roaring wind today. Wang Ling's cool voice sounded in Su Ying's mind, and there were traces of magic in its echo, startling him again. A Foundation establishment high school student could actually communicate telepathically. Su Ying. He would definitely find out who this Chuyuni teen was before he killed him. He narrowed his eyes slightly at Wang Ling, the latter just looked like a very ordinary high school student. Yet for some reason, his breathing picked up. When people were nervous, they would experience an adrenaline rush. Cultivators, moreover, would usually release spiritual pressure as a warning to their opponents, and through the collision of spiritual pressures, learn the extent of their strength. This was only a foundation establishment high school student, there was absolutely no way he would be able to withstand his pressure. Su-Ying comforted himself repeatedly. Bzz. He released all his spiritual pressure and bombarded Wang Ling with it. Tremble, young man. Kneel and surrender. The minutes ticked away in a dead silence. Wang Ling just nonchalantly raised his eyes to look at him. Su-Ying was shocked. All his spiritual pressure was bearing down on this teenager, but it wasn't any F***King use. Forget knocking him over, there wasn't even any F***King friction. He could build mountains with the bones of the countless number of people he had killed. Never could he have imagined that the first difficult opponent he would ever face would be a high school student. Right now, staring closely at Wang Ling, Su-Ying had already broken out in a cold sweat. He was only an ordinary foundation establishment senior high school student, yet he made him extremely nervous. At that moment, Su-Ying swiftly advanced and punched him. Whoosh! A tremendous wind was raised, blowing Wang Ling's short hair back. Actual combat was always the best way to test someone's strength. Perhaps the teenager was one of those people born with a weak ability to perceive spiritual pressure. But Su-Ying's punch was the real deal, a foundation establishment cultivator would be killed by it, not to mention a high school student who had never been professionally trained for combat. Combat training was an advanced course only taught at Golden Core universities. Su-Ying felt sorry for Wang Ling. He was just a high school youngster at the foundation establishment stage, and a future flower of the motherland. He hadn't fully enjoyed life, hadn't seen the beautiful rivers and mountains of the country, hadn't fallen in love. Just because he had been a busybody, he was going to die. Sayonara. He sighed in his heart, and aimed a punch directly at Wang Ling's chest. There wasn't the slightest flicker in Wang Ling's expression. To be honest, he felt sorry for Su-Ying, a cultivator who hadn't even reached the soul formation stage. He hadn't fully enjoyed the experience of being born. Again at the nascent soul stage, hadn't experienced the enlightenment of becoming one with nature at the soul formation stage, hadn't discovered the truth of the variations between yin and yang at the fusion stage, hadn't enjoyed the pleasure of the flight towards immortality at the tribulation transcendence stage. Just because he had punched Wang Ling, he was going to become a cripple. Bang! Like smashing a golden bell, the punch hit Wang Ling's chest unerringly with a resounding roar. In a split second, the rooftop shook mightily with the impact. However, Wang Ling was rock solid and motionless. Then, with a boom, Su-Ying, the assassin leading this attack, jerked as if he had been struck by lightning. Blood gushed out of his mouth like a fountain, and he flew backward like a jet. He was bleeding from all the 7 orifices of his head as he lay spread-eagled on the ground, spitting up blood foam. His face was twisted grotesquely from the intense pain, and in one instant, all his bones had been broken into pieces. What the hell happened? Su-Ying had felt like he was punching a piece of magic iron. It was completely like throwing an egg at a rock. At the moment of impact, the bones in his fist had cracked one by one. It was only King high school student. How could he have such a strong body? This was really so ked up. That was the last thought this chief of the killers had before passing out. Shadow Stream's Red Ribbon Killers were very famous in all of the murder industry, and the most famous among them were the legendary 3. The 3 Young Masters of Burying Love. The 3 Young Masters of Burying Love, eldest Young Master Su-Ying, second Young Master Su-Feng and third Young Master Su-Jian. In the last few years, the 3 Young Masters had shaken the world, and dominated the business of murder. It could be said that there was no one who didn't know them. Nobody could have imagined that this eldest young master, an industrial heavyweight, would die before his mission had even begun. It was now noon, and lunchtime at number 60 high school. Usually once class was over, a group of people could be seen holding up their tableware and running hellbent to the canteen. But given the security warning in the last few days, everyone was forcibly confined to the classrooms, and the canteen sent lunchboxes directly to the classroom doors. The students were bored to death. Teacher Pan was sitting in the classroom, quickly going through and marking the exercise books for the Tao Talismans course. Because of Shadow Stream's letter of challenge, physical education class had been cancelled in the last few days. As one of the vanguard teachers at number 60 high school, she had seized the opportunity to progress more quickly in teaching the Tao Talismans course. Bored stiff, Super Chen was spinning a pen, and Master of Dopey was teasing Dopey. Both of them looked like they were ready to die. Damn it, they had spent the whole morning writing talismans from memory. It was so boring. What was the point of drawing them carefully over and over again? Would it help them get an SSS in the Tao Talismans exam? It wasn't just Super Chen, all the boys felt roughly the same. Their very few physical education classes a week, wasted just like that. In Super Chen's view, this was simply a waste of life. It was no different from the life of a loser. Looking around, he was surprised to see that quite a number of the top students in the class, as well as some weirdos, were staying calm. Like Feather Lin, who might seem carefree usually, but was very prudent when it came to studying. The key thing was, until now, this scary girl had gotten all full marks in her Tao Talismans exercise book. Or like Little Peanut, the commissary in charge of studies, who was so quiet it was disturbing. From beginning to end, he had his head lowered as he wrote rapidly in his book. Super Chen was sure that for someone like Little Peanut to get into the elite class was all solely due to his diligence. And the third person was Wang Ling. Maybe it was a guy's intuition, but from the assessment interview, up to Wang Ling summoning a Demon King in their first Tao Talismans lesson, plus his consistently average results in every dictation test and every quiz they had, he felt that Wang Ling wasn't as simple as he looked. Super Chen was a man who believed in coincidences, but when so many coincidences happened to the same person at the same time, he couldn't help but begin to re-examine Wang Ling. He had once even suspected that the exceptionally powerful person who had annihilated the two Shadow Stream killers and protected Lotus Sun that day at the Shao family compound was Wang Ling himself. Of course, this was purely just an assumption, as he had no evidence to back it up. However, he felt that anyone whom classmate Lotus Sun took a fancy to absolutely wouldn't be an ordinary person. The truth was that he didn't know much about Wang Ling's family circumstances, but he just had a feeling that his background might not be that simple. Chapter 18. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chief School Guard Oldly Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. After so many years, Wang Ling finally realized the truth of one of Father and Mother Wang's guidelines for him growing up: knowledge is power. The killer didn't even know the basic law of physics, that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Wang Ling felt that the murder industry needed to place more emphasis on a cultural education. Even then, Wang Ling still underestimated the damage caused by the backlash from his body. Su Ying was now truly dead. Though he had just passed out earlier, the backlash had been too powerful, causing severe trauma to the golden core inside his body. Wang Ling probed Su Ying's body with his spiritual senses, and discovered that the golden core had completely tarnished to a color darker than my likes. It no longer had any shape, having directly broken down like porridge in his dantian. The rooftop was usually completely closed off. If Su Ying's body was found here, the rumors might turn it into yet another mysterious school incident. To avoid stirring up trouble, Wang Ling had to move the corpse to a relatively visible place. Under the shade of the trees on the sports field seemed like a good spot. Carrying Su Ying's body over took less than 5 seconds, and Wang Ling was about to teleport back. However, a voice abruptly came from behind him. "Who are you?" "Wang Ling." He didn't dare turn his head, but he felt a gaze burn into his back, making him feel uncomfortable from head to toe. But he was familiar with the owner of this voice, which was one that had been roughened by all that life had to offer. This was the distinctive voice of Old Li, the chief school guard. Wang Ling secretly thought. See rap. In his heart, Old Li was exactly the one person he had been trying hard to avoid, even more than teacher. Charge teacher Pan and the Fujoshi. Feather Lin. He had said previously that there was talent hiding in number 60 high school, with Old Antique being one of them. Old Li's prowess, in fact, was also very fearsome. When Old Li saw the school uniform Wang Ling was wearing, he frowned and asked in an interrogative tone, "Are you a student of our school?" This was an occupational habit. He had become chief school guard at number 60 high school after retiring as captain of the 7 Stars Cultivation Special Forces. Seeing that Wang Ling still hadn't said anything, he stared hard at the body which Wang Ling had put down. "Were you the one who killed him?" Wang Ling didn't want to admit to it, because to be precise, this person had killed himself. How could he be blamed for punching his immortal body and then dying due to the backlash? There was no way he was going to be made culpable for that. Old Li. Although he was only looking at this person's back, his intuition told him that it was definitely this guy who had done it. "Turn around," he shouted again, a warning in his voice. Wang Ling still didn't move. Right now, he really wanted to knock the old man out, but he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold back his power, and might directly kill him. "Turn around. Hurry up." Old Li shouted a second time. This time, Wang Ling turned around helplessly, but only enough so that half his profile was still concealed. "Turn all the way around." Old Li enunciated each word, impatience now evident in his tone. Wang Ling finally turned around, but he covered his face with his hands. The Great Transfiguration spell really took too long to cast, and Wang Ling was already at his wit's end. "Old Li, put your hands down." Damn it. How many persistent and extremely vicious criminals had he interrogated before? He had never needed to yell at them more than 3 times. Wang Ling sighed in his heart, and finally put his hands down as he completely gave up on resisting. Perhaps this was fate. The instant Old Li saw Wang Ling's real face, he couldn't help shouting, "Holy shit! Consultant Wang!" Wang Ling guessed his cover was blown when he saw the old man's excited expression. Old Li rubbed his eyes, and his dark pupils swept carefully up and down Wang Ling, to confirm that he wasn't seeing things. The person standing in front of him was the special spells consultant whom the 7 Stars Cultivation Special Forces had specifically hired 3 years ago, Wang Ling. Wang Ling still said nothing. The dumbest thing he had probably done ever since he was born was to become a temporary spells consultant for the 7 Stars Cultivation Special Forces for 2 days 3 years ago. And the biggest pain in the ass was that this old man, whom he had only ever encountered during that time, not only hadn't forgotten him, but after retirement, was freaking causing trouble by being at the same school. A nascent soul heavyweight running here to become a school guard. What was he thinking? An unrivaled superhuman running to an ordinary high school to study. What was he thinking? In that moment, the 2 individuals who were seeing each other for the first time in 3 years unexpectedly shared the same thought. After an enigmatic silence, Old Li gave the body on the ground a weak glance. Only then did he realize that this red ribbon killer was one of the internationally famous 3 young masters of burying love, eldest young master Suing. Examining him with his spiritual senses, Old Li was immediately shocked. Damn, his death was too horrible. From the skull to the bones of the toes, there was nowhere on the whole body that had been left unharmed. It was as if everything had broken down. These, however, were not critical. For a golden core cultivator, even if his meridians were all broken and his bones all fractured, he could still recover as long as his golden core was safe. But Su Ying's golden core wasn't just broken. It had completely broken down to nothing. Seeing this injury, and Wang Ling standing hale and hearty before him, Old Li immediately knew what had happened. It was definitely this guy who had stupidly attacked Wang Ling first. He had become like this because of the backlash. Only Wang Ling had such power. Old Li remembered the last mission he had run 3 years ago before his retirement from the 7 Stars Cultivation Special Forces. At that time, the foreign terrorist cultivation organization Dark Knight had attempted to unlock the gate between worlds, and planned to attack major cities in countries all over the world at night. After receiving the alert, Old Li's team had immediately set out to stop Dark Knight's terrorist activities. In the end, all 7 members of the team had fallen prey to Dark Knight's scheme, and when they weren't careful, they had been sucked into the gate between worlds. Old Li would never forget those 3 hellish days. The gate between worlds was filled with poisonous smog and the gases from corpses, and they hadn't been able to find any water or any herbal medicines to replenish their spirit energy. But the most fearful thing of all was the horde of demon kings that lurked there. Just one set loose would wreak untold devastation on any modern city. For 3 whole days they had struggled, separated and scattered. In the end, only 3 of the 7 remained alive. Old Li had thought he was going to be buried there. But at this critical moment, Wang Ling had suddenly appeared, and he killed hundreds of demon kings, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. He searched for and found everyone, and brought all 7 of them back. Wang Ling remembered that at the time, Old Li's group had fallen unconscious from the toxic smog, so he hadn't thought to erase their memories. Wang Ling hadn't at all expected that Old Li would actually still be conscious on the trip back to their world. And he had gotten a good look at the person who had saved them. For the rest of his life, he would never ever forget that moment. Wang Ling had merely been a temporary spells consultant arranged for the team by their superiors. Old Li and his team despised these spells consultants. In their eyes, they were a bunch of idiots who only knew theory and nothing else. Hence, almost no one had liked Wang Ling when he joined the team. Old Li had never imagined that in the end, the person who had saved them would actually be Wang Ling. He had been able to bring all of them out of the gate between worlds, after slaying hundreds of demon kings. This level of power was almost beyond what he could comprehend. By the time he had been discharged from the hospital after his recovery, Wang Ling had already left, vanishing without a trace. For Wang Ling, the fact that he had been forced to become a temporary spells consultant for 2 days 3 years ago had been a pure accident. And entering the gate between worlds and revealing his true power to bring everyone back had also purely been due to his humanitarian nature. In this world, there were not many people who knew of his true power, and Wang Ling knew who they were. But as it turned out, he had overlooked Old Li. However, Old Li also didn't know the whole story. He had always thought that Wang Ling just looked very young, and was in fact a monster who was thousands of years old. But the truth was, this year, Wang Ling really was only 16 years old. Chapter 19. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The most fearsome air is suddenly calm. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. Wang Ling had always been very afraid of meeting Old Li. If he told Old Li his true age, he would be treated as a monster. But if he didn't clarify the matter, and this misunderstanding persisted, wouldn't this make him a pervert? Based on Old Li's years of experience, there were only 2 reasons that a big shot who had already surpassed his realm of knowledge would still attend this mediocre high school. Reason 1. To move around incognito, in order to satisfy some particular desire. Reason 2. To chase a passionate love. Wang Ling had only been in the 7 Stars Cultivation Special Forces for a few days, but he was so low-key that even when everyone in the team had taken turns ridiculing him, he hadn't said anything. Therefore, Old Li straightaway ruled out the first reason. Then he thought of the rumors in those first 2 days about what had happened to Wang Ling and Lotus Sun at the Xiao family compound. It was as if the clouds had suddenly cleared, and in a flash of understanding, he saw the light. He stared at Wan Ling as if he had seen through everything. "May I ask, Consultant Wang, were the Shadow Stream killers who intended to kidnap Miss Lotus Sun at the Shao family compound several days ago, also?" Wan Ling's answer was very straightforward. For someone who knew his true strength, it wasn't surprising for Old Li to come to this conclusion. Hence, Wan Ling had nothing to hide. "Then may I ask, your relationship with student Lotus Sunday?" "Just classmates." Wan Ling was as reticent as usual. Old Li goggled at him, an astonished expression on his face. He hadn't come here to satisfy some special desire or to experience the vigors of youth. Damn! Was it possible that Consultant Wang didn't like women? Right now, Wan Ling really wanted to strangle this old man with his wild imagination. Exactly why would someone who had retired as captain of the 7 Stars Cultivation Special Forces condescend to becoming a school guard at a mediocre school? Wan Ling was very curious about this. Given Old Li's qualifications, even after retirement, he could have gotten special consideration, and be promoted as a commanding officer to work behind the scenes. Wan Ling thought that such a position, where Old Li wouldn't need to show his face for the whole day, and just needed to pass idle judgment from behind the scenes, suited his character very well. "You have an internal injury." Very quickly, Wan Ling perceived an abnormality about Old Li. Even without the use of the heavenly eye, Wan Ling's eyes were 1,000 times more powerful than the most advanced instruments available today. Old Li smiled bitterly. "After returning from the gate between worlds and regaining consciousness, because of a small incident, my internal injuries were aggravated, and I haven't been very agile since." "What happened?" Wan Ling raised an eyebrow, and spoke telepathically out of habit. "After I woke up, I was anxious to find Consultant Wang, and I wanted to thank you in person. The first time, I hadn't even reached the corridor before the nurse who had come to check on me used a shadow binding spell to haul me back. The second time, I had just walked out the hospital's main entrance when my old boss caught me. Without saying a word, he used a flying dragon spell on me. I struggled mightily, almost at the cost of him breaking my balls, but in the end I was caught and taken back to recuperate. F***K, was there any need to be so desperate? The third time, I was going to leave the hospital by flying my sword out the window, but I forgot to break the hospital's seal on spirit energy, so right from the start I couldn't use my spirit energy, and I fell straight down from the 30th floor." Old Li sighed with deep pain and bitterness. "As a result, I haven't been able to fully recover until now." Wan Ling saw that the internal injury was in Old Li's skull, caused by the environment in the gate between worlds back then. Even though it had already been treated, it hadn't been able to withstand the repeated sufferings he had endured. Indeed, it would have been absurd if it could be healed after all that. Listening to Old Li talk about himself, Wan Ling heaved a deep sigh for this former captain of the Special Forces. Who would have thought that after coming back, his brain would have degenerated from the toxins in the gate between worlds? With Old Li's current intelligence, forget battle command, he could probably only play pair-matching puzzle games. Wan Ling took a deep breath, and a purification light formed in his palm. Among the 3,000 great spells, the Great Purification spell could purify all evil. The primary stage of the spell had a strong expulsion effect on poisons and toxins, while the advanced stage could even purify the heart of evil desires. Given his current proficiency with this spell, Wan Ling believed he could directly transform those perverts who like to grope women in public into ascetic Shaolin monks. When he saw the spirit light in Wan Ling's hand, Old Li was dumbfounded. It was a spell he had never seen before. The elaborate talisman light and pure accumulation of spirit energy was enough to prove Wan Ling's proficiency in it. His eyes were completely fixed on the spell as he praised Wan Ling endlessly. "That's just like Consultant Wang, you're as strong as always." He felt that the 100 magic spells that he had managed to accumulate over so many years were just a drop in the ocean that was Wan Ling's collection of spells. This light will heal your internal wounds completely. Wan Ling didn't say much before he placed his palm on Old Li's forehead. The warm talisman light was slowly absorbed. Old Li felt something cool permeate his brain, and the toxins that had been entrenched inside for many years dissolved little by little with the spirit light. Finally, the poison was completely drawn out, and Wan Ling rolled the black qi around with his fingers to mix it with the purification light, burning all of it to ash. Cool. Old Li said in a nauseating, girlish-sounding voice. After the toxins that had existed in his body for 3 whole years had been dispelled, he felt 100 years younger. Even his body was much lighter. Most obvious of all, he realized that his spirit energy was flowing smoothly like water, and his spiritual meridians were no longer clogged. Consultant Wang, you are truly powerful. Old Li admired Wan Ling even more. Over the last few years, he had seen so many famous doctors, but none of them had been able to force the stubborn toxins out. Even advanced technology and the best panaceas couldn't compare with the miraculous effects of Wan Ling's spell. I'm not a consultant. From now on in school, call me Student Wan Ling corrected him. Very well, Student Wan Ling. How could Old Li not listen to the great master? Old Li directed his gaze to the body on the ground, and he asked, then what should we do with Su Ying's body? Wan Ling didn't say anything, and only looked back at Old Li. Now that the toxins had been expelled from his brain, clear-headed Old Li immediately understood the intention in Wan Ling's eyes. His meaning couldn't be any clearer, he was obviously leaving it to Old Li to handle. Otherwise, if news leaked out that Wan Ling as a student had killed a Shadow Stream Red Ribbon Killer, he would probably be in the headlines for the next few months. This completely disagreed with Wan Ling's low-key character. Wan Ling didn't forcibly erase Old Li's memory this time, after thinking it over. As a shield, this person standing under a tree on the school ground would in fact prove useful in helping conceal his identity. As for the misunderstanding regarding his age, Wan Ling felt that since the mistake had already been made, he might as well make the most of it. A breeze brushed past them, and Wan Ling's ears twitched as he heard footsteps nearby. It was time for him to return now that the problem had been dealt with. It had been too long since he had fully used the Great Separation spell. Wan Ling couldn't be sure how much longer his clone in the classroom would last. Poof! In an instant, Wan Ling's figure blinked out, vanishing in the wind. Seeing Wan Ling vanish abruptly, Old Li sighed at the gap in their levels, and muttered to himself. Too inferior. Too inferior. Whatever reason the other party had for coming to school, with such a great master at his side, Old Li felt that he couldn't waste this great opportunity. He had to find a way to make him his teacher. While Old Li was sighing, a group of school guards rushed to the scene, as Wan Ling had anticipated. When the group saw the man standing in the shade of the tree, as well as the body lying on the ground, they were all greatly shocked. Who is it? Old Li slowly strolled out from under the tree with his hands behind his back and wearing the strict countenance of a veteran officer. It's me. It's you, Lord Chief. The school guards immediately lined up in a row and saluted respectfully. Old Li nodded and calmly pointed to the body on the ground. I just eliminated a Shadow Stream killer, help bury the body. After giving this order, Old Li left straightaway without looking back. The school guards came forward to take a look, and couldn't help swearing, this death was too horrible, even the bones had broken down to nothing. The body had simply become nothing more than human slag. Chapter 20 You are listening at novelfull.audio. The number 1 weapon hidden on school grounds translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Lotus Sun remembered that the last time she had been placed under protection was when she had been in Qi Condensation Junior High School. At that time, there had been a group of reckless hoodlums who had threatened to kidnap her. As a result, the next day, Huagua Water Curtain Group had hired a large number of powerful cultivators to clear out all the criminal elements and nests of ruffians in the school's vicinity. Even the old lady who committed Punxi. At the end of the street wasn't let off, and had been straightaway thrown out of the city. After that incident, all the underground organizations had put Lotus Sun at the top of their list of people who absolutely couldn't be messed with. Since then, no one had dared recklessly provoke this young miss. Of course, it was a little different this time. Shadow Stream was a world-class killer organization that was far above back-alley ruffians on the street. This group of assassins, who killed without blinking an eye, would likely attack Lotus Sun directly if she took leave from school for her protection. Headmaster Chen had already considered this, and thus rejected this proposal put forward by the higher-ups. This was probably the most rigorous security operation that had ever been organized since No. 60 High School's founding. In and outside the school, teachers or security guards were arranged to watch the garden, the corridors, and even the toilets. The teacher's office which Lotus Sun had been moved to was the innermost room on the first floor. The exit next to the office had already been completely sealed off, and it was only Old Antique with her in the large office. "You look stressed, do you want some dessert to help you relax?" As he marked homework, Old Antique pulled open the drawer of his table, which he had specially prepared to hold his snacks. Lotus Sun took one look at the inside of the drawer and was struck dumb. There were more snacks in the drawer than in a supermarket. Lotus Sun sighed and shook her head disinterestedly. This wasn't the first time that something like this had happened to her, but this time she felt jittery for some reason. This whole assassination was happening because of the date in the Shao family compound. At the thought of that awkward date, Lotus Sun felt twitchy for some reason, like she had somehow forgotten something. In the end, she had been rescued by a mysterious man, but this mysterious man who had protected her and classmate Wang Ling, who was it? Hey, Wang Ling is really lucky for you to be this troubled over him. Old Antique had also been young once, so naturally he knew what Lotus Sun was thinking. If you want to close the distance between the both of you, you need to adapt to his taste, understand? Lotus Sun instantly blushed. But I don't know what he likes. If you don't know, you can ask me. With a hee-hee laugh, Old Antique took a small snack out of the drawer. Crispy noodle snack. Old Antique nodded his head like a chicken pecking at rice. Student Wang Ling often comes to buy them from me. Lotus Sun was thoroughly shocked. Teacher Wang, are you actually selling snacks? Old Antique sighed. The education department now forbids teachers from holding supplementary classes, so I can only sell snacks to earn extra cash. Teaching alone doesn't earn me enough to eat. Lotus Sun was lost in thought as she stared at the crispy noodle snack on the table. While Lotus Sun's imagination ran wild, elsewhere, the assassination operation had already officially started. In the male toilets on one of the school floors, a school guard had been knocked out in one of the cubicles by a tranquilizer dart. The man who broke in through the vent mercilessly stripped the school guard of his uniform, and to keep him from alerting everyone else after he woke up, didn't even leave him his underwear. It was compulsory for killers to learn how to replicate or imitate something, and this was clearly a walk in the park for this man. As the second of the three young masters of burying love, and number 16 on the international list of killers, Su Feng's reputation wasn't a hollow one. He straightened the uniform and tie in front of the mirror, completely transfigured his face into that of the school guard according to his identification card, and walked smoothly out of the bathroom. He didn't know what eldest young master Su Ing and third young master Su Jian's situations were like, but he saw that the mission signal was still active. Surely these two hadn't run into some sort of trouble. Su Feng didn't think too much of it, and walked directly to the target signal coordinates. There were 3 teachers' offices in the vicinity of the target's location, 2 of which had already been closed. Only the innermost room still had lights on. The assassination target was there. Protection was so tight outside the school, but there wasn't even a security guard in the corridor where the target was located. Su Feng sneered, this kind of empty city stratagem didn't work on Shadow Stream at all. Long before the letter of challenge had been issued to number 60 high school, Shadow Stream had already secretly placed a tracker on Lotus Sunday. No matter where Lotus Sun was, she could be monitored. Su Feng put his hands in his pants pockets as he walked to the door of the lit office and sent out his spiritual senses to test the atmosphere. In addition to the target, only one teacher had been arranged to stay with Lotus Sun in the office for her protection. Furthermore, it was a fatty who only knew how to eat snacks. Su Feng felt that the whole of Shadow Stream was seriously being looked down upon. What kind of attitude did this mediocre high school have, in the face of a challenge from a world-class killer organization? Very well. Standing at the door of the office, Su Feng heaved a deep sigh. As a first-class Shadow Stream Red Ribbon killer, he would make this group of people who had underestimated Shadow Stream pay the price. Thinking this, he pushed open the door of the office. Inside the room, Old Antique was happily discussing matters of love with Lotus Sun in front of a small blackboard. Having already felt Su Feng's murderous intent, Old Antique's face darkened. In the next moment, light glinted off a blade as the other party, without even a greeting, straightaway took out a flying knife and threw it at them. "Teacher, watch out." Everything happened like lightning. It had taken less than a second for the assassin to take out the knife and throw it. Lotus Sun was completely unable to follow the flying knife's trajectory with her eyes, and by the time she regained her senses, this dangerous flying knife was firmly clipped between Old Antique's fingers. Peak late Golden Core stage. That's just like a Shadow Stream Red Ribbon killer, you're really powerful. Old Antique smiled lightly as he placed the flying knife on the table with a clatter. Su Feng was slightly stunned. He had thrown that knife at full force just now, straight at a weak point and at a speed that was only a little slower than a bullet. Furthermore, the blade had been specially reinforced in order to be able to penetrate the body of a golden core cultivator. It had taken him not more than 3 seconds to enter the office and throw the knife. Who could have imagined that a normal high school teacher, who had never received any professional combat training, would actually be able to catch his deadly flying knife so precisely? "Your Excellency, who are you?" Su Feng felt that the technique shown by the man in front of him was somewhat familiar. "It doesn't matter who I am." Old Antique smiled slightly. On the side, Lotus Sun had partially covered her mouth, unable to conceal the shock in her eyes. The Old Antique in front of her was still as amiable as ever, and when he smiled, his eyes crinkled in their trademark style. However, the aura around him was different to what he was like during their usual lessons. Su Feng's face darkened. The fact that this man was able to catch his flying knife proved that his strength was roughly equal to his. Why, for no good reason at all, was there such an expert among the teaching staff at an ordinary high school? But now wasn't the time to bother with this. He knew it was inadvisable to stay here for too long. As long as Lotus Sun was eliminated, his mission would be considered a success. With a shake of his hand, a black gun with a silencer screwed on instantly appeared in his hand. Almost without any pause, he aimed directly at Lotus Sun, and with a bang, a spirit bullet shot out, preceded by a forceful wind. Die. The speed of the spirit bullet was 10 times faster than the flying knife. Su Feng didn't believe Old Antique would be able to also catch the bullet with his bare hands. Old Antique glanced at Su Feng, still indifferent. He sat there like Mount Tai, steady as a rock. At the same time, his face was very calm, without the slightest flicker in his expression. "Who?" He stretched out his fingers very serenely, his movement so slow that even Lotus Sun could see it. Miraculously, he caught the bullet firmly with 2 fingers once again, like pinching a fly. There is no stronghold one cannot overcome with all the martial arts in the world. Except speed, which cannot be transcended. Then, there was a dead silence. Lotus Sun was too shocked to say anything. Su Feng, however, was once again petrified. Who the F***K was he? Shadow Stream has declined these last few years. Their trainees are becoming more and more sloppy. Old Antique's face turned gloomy as he sighed quietly. This manner of speaking stunned Su Feng. These words, and such incredible strength. Su Feng could only think of one person. In the next moment, Su Feng couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. This was a man he couldn't afford to provoke. "Senior, I'm sorry to have offended you." Su Feng immediately bowed, ready to withdraw. "Coming and going as you please. Isn't this looking down on me too much?" Old Antique threw the bullet into the trash can, then picked up a piece of chalk from the blackboard trough. "If you want to attack my student, you should pay the price." Su Feng instinctively sensed danger. "What is Senior going to do?" "Nothing." Old Antique smiled slightly. "I was just thinking, I should teach you a lesson." WZZT, as soon as he finished speaking, a bright light burst forth from Old Antique's fingertips. Faster than a spirit bullet, it pierced the air. Su Feng had no time to react at all, and abruptly, his eyes widened as far as they could go. "Ah!" Very quickly, his voice was abruptly cut off. He lowered his head in disbelief. What he saw was a piece of chalk pierce his chest with a puff.